Feels like an excellent video topic. We're going to take a look at what I'm just learning about now, an extremely detailed post on what this individual's opinions are on what Mythic Plus should change. This person's put a lot of effort into it. So honestly, I want to make the video because, yeah, when you put this much effort into something, you should definitely be rewarded. And Blizzard did reward them. So this is how I found out about it. I saw it on the blue post. And it's kind of funny because, anyway, it says super busy this week. But I wanted to drop in here real quick to say two things. First up, this is a really well-written and easy to read feedback post, and the time you put into it is appreciated. I read that and I was like, what? A Blizzard employee said that? Okay. Anyway, I can't promise any specific changes on the spot, but we'll be discussing some of the issues you brought up here. Secondly, I wanted to clarify our intent with the Plagueborer change, as the goal was not to prevent creative routing. We're huge fans of player choice and creative strategies, and this is precisely the sentiment from which Plagueborers came to exist in the first place. The problem arose from the combination of how powerful they were, plus how easy it was to take them anywhere in the dungeon, to the point that it felt like your own performance playing your class was nearly irrelevant next to simply optimizing Plagueborers. This is similar to the Tol Dagor cannon problem. This is a delicate line to walk anytime we try to do powerful dungeon-specific effects, but we feel it's worth it and hope to keep experimenting with stuff like this in future dungeons. So, yeah, that's, this could be its own video, but really quick, I do want to say that I think the solution to this is just make them very weak out of the gate. I mean, make it so they're not super powerful, then people won't be going out of their way to exploit them. And I think the problem was the exploitation of it. Like, yeah, the guy says how easy it was to take them anywhere in the dungeon. It wasn't easy. It was bugged, multiple different levels of bugs. And frankly, the people who participated in that should probably be banned or at least actioned in some way. But of course, it happens in the Great Push, so that's not going to occur. But yeah, I mean, that's not true at all. Like, they made a good system, and they definitely it worked well enough, I think, for most people. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard because you have the super competitive and then the regular. So let's go ahead and read this. This is a very long post. I'm going to read hopefully every word of it, and I will give my opinions along the way because I am sure I will have some. So here we go. This person says, currently the most fun, most desirable, and easiest dungeon is without a doubt Necrotic Wake. Now, right out of the gate, I could already tell I might be at odds with some of this stuff because I really don't like the word desirable and easiest. Fun, but regardless of desirable, fun and easiest should never be together. Not in Mythic Plus, because that's the opposite of what the system's goals are, right? The goals of the system are to challenge you and for you to get better and overcome that challenge. And I feel like this is a very common mistake. And I think I just have a feeling that I'm going to be reading a lot of this type of mentality here. Anyway, getting a Necrotic Wake key at the start of the week feels great. Getting a Theater of Pain or Sanguine Depths key feels bad. And so that's kind of silly to even say that out loud because they give different scores. Like, you can't just push Necrotic Wake 10 times and expect to be where you want to be at the end of the season. It just doesn't work that way. You have to be good at all the dungeons, which I guess is kind of what this person's point is, because he wants all the dungeons to feel like Necrotic Wake, but the whole concept of leading by saying, like, getting a dungeon that you don't find, an easy, desirable, or most fun dungeon is a bad feeling. It's like, no, that's probably a good feeling because that's the key you probably need the most, right? Everybody's doing Necrotic Wake. As soon as somebody lists one, if its spam fills up, well, guess what? The keys you need the most are the other ones. I mean, that's the way I've always looked at it. Anyway, ideally, all dungeons are as fun or cool as Necrotic Wake, which is difficult to accomplish, but that doesn't mean we can't try. I don't really find Necrotic Wake fun, first of all. That's probably one of my least favorite dungeons. I mean, it's certainly the easiest dungeon. I mean, maybe that's why I don't find it that much fun. The most fun dungeon is definitely Mists. I love Mists. There's so many cool things you can do, especially as Blood DK. I also feel like Theater is one of my favorite dungeons because of the same thing. Basically, Plaguefall, any of the dungeons where Blood DK can do a lot of fun stuff. So this is not a universal issue, and I just want that to be clear, at least from my opinion. Okay, so I'm going to list out a couple changes to several dungeons with the hopes of bringing them to the same level of fun and excitement as Necrotic Wake. And so this is... I don't know. Should we even bother reading this? I feel like I guess you need to read this first in order to understand, because then he goes on to explain it. But the thing I have to say, the thing I like the most is that he took the time to put these emotes in here. This really feels like somebody who actually likes the game. I'm really glad to see that, because a lot of people sadly don't seem to actually like the video game they're playing and trying to give feedback on. So let's see what he has to say about Sanguine Depths. Move the first Venthyr anima cage from the current location to G6, which I don't know very well, but luckily he explains the first pack in the long corridor where the first boss is. And then I guess he's going to go on to explain that. But my first inclination is like, no, I definitely don't want to see these cages just destroy bosses. But I guess I could be fine with it. Like the second one or whatever, like the one later in the dungeon that you can be used that way if you're very skilled. So I guess I could kind of understand why people might want to do that for the first one too. But I really don't want to see bosses any easier than they already are at times, especially on fortified weeks. But anyway, Crixus the Voracious' Hungering Drain, the interrupt thing, no longer applies a tick of damage if interrupted within 1 second of the cast. Does that really make it more fun? I mean, the reason they do that type of mechanic is because they want you to actually interrupt, but the mechanic is part of the fight, right? Like if that just didn't do anything, the fight that would be a huge like that's a huge nerf to the fight. Do you think the fight needs that kind of nerf? Maybe. Crixus the Voracious' Severing Smash no longer applies an orb to the tank. No, that one I definitely don't agree with. That's actually a lot of people do that wrong. I feel like I was actually just watching Grixon's video on that too, and he understands it seemingly maybe because I influenced him, but the tank one is the most important one because as the tank you need to be setting the pace for everybody else's orbs since you can take it and solo it and solo it, but you could put it anywhere you want and then you have that position for the boss as well. So that's why I always like to go the opposite direction of the group, because then the group can go really far, and then as a tank, the boss doesn't have to run back into the group. The boss can go the opposite direction. So no, I definitely don't think that. I mean, why would that even change? It doesn't really make any sense. Again, that's just a nerf to the fight, which I don't think the fight needs to be nerfed. Anyway, Grand Protector Baleria, or I don't know how you say that name, Fragments of Radiance, the yellow orbs that reduce the red explosions damage, now also reduce damage from Endless Torment, the AoE damage after the explosion that everyone takes. That just doesn't. Why? I just dodged that. You could just dodge that. What is it? So what's the goal? I guess we'll find out. But no, I definitely don't think we need to nerf the dungeon. Sanguine Depths is actually one of the easiest dungeons in my opinion, and I think it's probably one that I have the most success with. It's just a super lenient timer, and the bosses are really the only hard part. So I don't think that should change. And that's already starting to creep in. It makes me think like this is going to be mostly like, let's make the dungeon easier. And I kind of get it because then if everything was like really easy, then everybody could start pushing higher and higher because this is an infinite difficulty scale. So it's like, fine. If something's, it's not like Mythic Raid, right? Like if you nerf all the Mythic Raid fights, there's nothing else to do. You kill the boss and that's it. But in Mythic Plus, it's like, okay, if everything's easier by default, then it just makes people do harder content. So, okay, I get it a little bit, but no, I definitely think bosses should stay hard. Anyway, Theater of Pain, 3 new, now this one's, I don't know what the hell he's going for here. 3 new dungeon-wide bonuses: Boon of Conquest, physical damage done; Boon of Agony, magic damage done; and Boon of Carnage, 5% health. No. Killing Zav the Unfallen grants 2 stacks of Boon of Conquest, 10% physical damage done; 1 stack of Boon of Agony, 5% magic done. I'm not even going to read it. This is honestly really dumb. I don't know why. What's the point of this? Total bonus for all bosses killed. Order of acquisition depends on the group choice and group comp. It's like, yeah, I don't. First of all, like, okay, I get what your point is here. You're trying to make it like, the longer you're in the dungeon, the stronger you get, and that's just not how dungeons work, right? Like, I mean, that's the opposite of what should be happening. It's supposed to be you're racing against the timer. It's not supposed to be getting easier as you go. But I like the concept, I guess. I don't think there's any way to do it that isn't this way, so it probably just can't be considered. But it's like, no, I definitely don't want to see the final boss be a complete joke. I mean, first of all, the numbers are absurd. 20% physical damage, 20% magic damage, and 20% health for the last boss? Like, come on, man. What do you want to buff the boss? Maybe, okay, buff the boss by 100%. I mean, if you buff the boss by like a mad amount and then you have that, I'm fine with that. But that's a lot of damage, dude. Like, that's not really, that's kind of unfair of you to ask that. Anyway, the other side, let's see. Haunted Urns, Night Fae Urns, now also damage enemies for 20% of their maximum health on activation. It is kind of strange to me that that's the only one in the whole game that doesn't actually do anything, right? Every other one is like a massive So yeah, you know what? So I kind of agree with that, not because I think it's needed, but just because it's kind of bizarre that that's the only one in the game that does that. But it's a bit too late for that now. I mean, that would just make that dungeon a lot easier. And again, you're turning this into like this. I don't, because now you're gonna have everybody's just gonna be pulling. I mean, think about Ardenweald, dude. 20% of the max. How about let's like them? How about let's make them take more damage? I like that. I like that in Spires. That seems like the most balanced one. The Spires one. The spear is very, very, very good, and it's not doesn't one shot the mobs like the weapons in Necrotic Wake or something like that. It feels balanced. So let's do that. 20% more damage while it's up, and maybe make it last 10 seconds or something. Okay, if you activate a Haunted Urn during phase 2 of the Musala encounter, it will remove 50% health from all 4 Shattered Visages. There are only 2 urns that apply to this, the one near the Hakar wing and the one near the Ardenweald wing, which you can't get anywhere near while you're doing that fight. Right? Right? Am I missing something here? You can't go anywhere near those, so um yeah, if you do that, you die. I don't know if you don't know that. I don't. I feel like I'm wrong about that. Maybe I don't want to say it too firmly, but I'm pretty sure if you go anywhere near those things, I mean, I guess if Musala's there, I guess you can. But no, because when you get taken to the statues, you can't go there again, right? I don't know. Anyway, okay, it's a cool. I mean, there's very interesting concepts. I guess is what the guy's going for. It's just like you're presenting these pretty poorly to Blizzard. I feel like. Even though he put so much effort into typing all this out, it's kind of like just this feels like a huge waste of time. Most of this stuff, anyway, because they're not going to consider it. I mean to say. Anyway, new haunted urn and Mechagon area in the room where Arf is present. Yeah, I guess that could be a good idea, right? Because there's none in the Mechagon area. Hakar's ads have 50% reduced health and are now tauntable. No, that's the whole point of the fight. I mean, that's literally like 50% of the damage from the encounter, right? Is the ads fixating? Um, and I don't think that's not really a reference to how it used to work, but the Sons of Hakar being on some random damage dealer was always kind of a thematic part of the fight. So no, that one's definitely out in my book. Okay, Mists of Tirna Scithe. Replace Drust Bowbreaker, the big boys that hit the ground for AoE damage in Group 8, with 4 Drust Spike Claws and 2 Drust Spike Claws. Wait, with the... Oh, I see. He's saying just make it a big group of Spike Claws? Replace Drust Bowbreaker in Group 9 with Drust Soul Cleaver. Why? Why would you do that? Reduce the Drust Spike Claw's bleed damage by 50%. Drust Spike Claw's Dying Breath, the 10% increased damage debuff, no longer applies to players, only to NPCs, including bosses. What is that? I don't even know what that is. Mistveil Stalker's bleed upfront damage decreased by 50%. Note, the dot damage is the same, just the upfront damage. Well, that one I could see getting nerfed, to be honest. That does feel very out of, like, it's very, very, very difficult to prevent that on going on somebody, so that one that one's like a nerf that's probably needed. Mistcaller no longer has a third guessing game at 10%. I had a feeling this was going to be like this, right? It's just all nerfs. Anyway, whenever a Night Fate claims a seed, I mean, this dungeon's really easy, man. Like, we don't need to be nerfing these bosses. If anything, the first boss should still be being looked at. Whenever a Night Fate claims a seed, and I actually disagree that one should be reduced because you could actually burst through that. If you're a skilled and very coordinated group, you can actually skip that one. I've seen it done. But it maybe not on super high keys though. But anyway, whenever a Night Flake claims a seed, those respawn points, applies the mushroom buffs to all players. It is strange to me that the mushroom buffs are only in that one area, right? That seems like pretty poorly thought out. I don't think they should do that, but I think they should maybe put them somewhere else. Anyway, in Mythic Plus, Spine Maw Gorgers pulled into Tredova no longer turn into the Mist Dungeon Achievement mobs, where they heal to full. This is so that you can pull mobs into the last boss. I don't know what that even... I don't know anything about any of that stuff. I don't really understand why we're replacing mobs. Is he trying to get rid of the Drust Bowbreakers? I mean, first of all, dude, that's just kind of overstepping your boundaries on this. Like, they put them in for a reason, right? Like, I don't think they've ever actually removed a mob type once it's been added to the game. I know they changed, like, the Hellion and Spires. They changed dramatically. It's almost like it's not the same mob from the original version, but If you're just trying to get the mobs removed from the game, then yeah, that's not going. Again, this is just not going to happen. So I like that you put a little tree here. I like trees, but I don't really like any of the suggestions there. Spires of Ascension. Forsworn skirmishers no longer jump away. We were just talking about this on stream. It feels like a really dumb pack. I think one of those mobs should just be present in a bunch of different packs. I like it how when you're on that one side, you're going up the way, and there's that one guy, and you keep gripping him back. I think that's a really good, like, high skill play. And there's a bunch of mobs like that in Spires. But then when you go left and there's just those three dudes, it's like, this is the dumbest pack in the game. Like, why? I mean, it's almost dumb that people route into it almost, but you have to like line of sight them just to be able to kill them efficiently. Just take those. I would be fine with just doing away with that. But yeah, I guess I actually agree with that in the end. And that doesn't really feel like a nerf. That's just a dumb mechanic that is not really counterable, or you end up doing dumb things to counter it more so. Increases Aura Furon's drained bonus damage where he recharged from 100% to 200%. What? Why? The fucking fight is not that hard. We don't need to be buffing it like that. Wow. You're going to kill him in like... That's... Okay, so do that and then double his health? We agree on that? Like, come on, man. These things are tuned around these mechanics. You can't just be doing that. Provide one additional Spear of Destiny on the Seed of Archon platform where Devos is. I was thinking about that too. I think there should be a third one somewhere. I don't know about there. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess. But I definitely think there should be a third one. That seems like that wouldn't be that imbalanced. I would actually like to see them usable on bosses. I would like to see maybe 2 or 3 even and usable on bosses. I think that would be pretty cool. Anyway, increases damage dealt by Archon Spear during the Devos fight by 50%. Okay, so you want the boss to just die from the spear. I don't actually know how much 50% would deal, but it deals like what, like 15% of the boss's health every time? So it would deal like 20 some percent of the boss's health every time. So the 2 phases would be 50% of the boss's health. I just don't. I mean, come on, man. Especially Spires too. It's like, what are we nerfing all this stuff for? Okay, and we're almost done. Halls of Atonement. Plaguefall, there's only one. Anyway, Halls of Atonement. Increase High Adjudicator Elise's volley of power. The interruptible AoE damage by 200%. This is to make the fight slightly harder. Oh, we agree. I agree. That's actually the easiest fight in the game. Maybe one of the easiest ever. And I think it's actually because they originally wanted those cages that the souls have to be taken to be limited in their amount of availability. And then I think they backed that off at the last minute. Because I'm actually sure it was like that on the alpha and the beta when I first tested that dungeon. I think they backed that off at the last minute, and now they just never changed the fight to be harder. Add 2 extra loyal Stoneborns on Lord Chamberlain. 2? Why? Why? No, that dungeon definitely has enough of those. But I would like it if there was ways that you can maybe choose where you use them better. Because you kind of can only use them where the game allows you to use them. But there's a couple that you kind of can't really get, in places that you don't really want them. It would be cool if you can take them as a pet and they followed you around. And then you press the button when you want it. I think, that is what everybody should be thinking about. Like, ways that you can make smart decisions smarter. I like that. Plaguefall, look at that sick little face there. I like the vampire too. I mean, let's get serious. This is well done. Okay, bring back the 2 rigged Plagueborers after the first boss room. That was such a nice strat for killing the first boss. I forgot about that. Yeah, I never actually did that, I don't think. But now that everybody's taking the red slime to the first boss, it was kind of cool. But again, it's just, these bosses aren't supposed to be one shot. Like, you're not supposed to kill freaking Opheron and you're not supposed to do 50% of the boss's health in a 10-second window. That's just not the fight's design. Okay, so let's read all this now. That was actually more interesting than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I don't really think many of them are logical. Okay, Sanguine Depths. In my experience, as the keys get higher, the first boss ends up becoming the biggest problem by far. On 23s, 80% of my keys break on the first boss. This change is meant to bring the earn buff directly to the boss, rather than wasting it on dungeon mobs that don't really need that much of a DPS increase. In addition, the third boss is very dangerous in high keys, especially where her Endless Torment cast that does increasingly high unavoidable damage. Wait, did I read that wrong then? I'm confused what that comment means. The AoE damage after. Oh, wait, what? What is this? I thought this was from Endless Torment. What is this? This is the dot afterwards? I don't actually know what this mechanic is. Um, Causes a torrent of anima, causing her to release waves of pain that inflicts 600 damage and unleash anguish cries. Okay, so anguish cries are the things on the ground. And then you also just take holy damage passively. Is that correct? This must be the case. Yeah. Okay, I didn't even know that worked that way, to be honest. Well, I can kind of agree with that, actually. I always thought it was weird that it didn't. I didn't even know that was a thing, to be honest. So I guess I can't disagree with that. And so, like, now that they're explaining it, like, it's a better perspective for sure. Um, but I don't think it's imbalanced that the bosses are hard in that dungeon because everything else is an absolute joke, right? So I just okay, if it was like that from the start, I'm sure I would agree. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have any complaints if that dungeon was just very easy all around. And I like the thought process in Sanguine at least because at least you're making it a little bit more of a high skill move. You use the urn and then go right to the boss, and it would work pretty well, to be honest. That one is probably one of the more clever options. And now that they've explained it, I think I sympathize more. So I'm good. I'm good with that one. Okay, Theater of Pain. The dungeon wanted to do something different. Focus more on small skirmishes with high health, high damage, big targets. There are very few pulls that you can combine in that dungeon. About 5 viable pull combinations. This makes the timer very tight and difficult to save time on since you can't make a huge risky pull. Because you can't change a lot of the pulls. Wow, what is all the i.e. Lichwing, you literally cannot combine them. Yes, okay, obviously. All right, this change aims to provide a speed boost while also provide groups with options. If you have more magic damage, go Lichwing for more magic damage and less physical, and vice versa for the Zabwing if you have more physical damage. In extremely high keys, the Abomination Wing may be needed first just to survive certain mechanics. And so, okay, all right. So as long as we're saying that we're going to retune everything in the dungeon, it's like you can't just be blanket nerfing the 5-man, right? Like this is not feedback. This is unactionable feedback. This is what they call unactionable feedback, right? Like you want something that you want personally that doesn't jive with what the game wants, so it can't be considered. That's just. But yeah, if you want to do a complete retune of the dungeons, of the bosses and everything, and the last boss, I'd be fine with that. I mean, this person doesn't even mention the last boss, right? Yeah, I mean, I get why you're bringing it up, but like the last boss is then going to be the easiest boss in the dungeon, and that's clearly not the design of the dungeon. So anyway, that'd be a cool, maybe like some kind of a seasonal fix, though. You know what I mean? Maybe we can consider that for a seasonal, but I don't think it's happening. Okay, and first of all, they did just add a minute to theater, right? So okay. The other side, this dungeon is really long, but I think it's fair. There are two main problems with it. Let's see. The urns are useful, but nowhere near as strong as the Kyrian Orbs in Necrotic Wake or the Loyal Stoneborn. Yeah, obviously they're the least useful one. Two, there are two main problems with it. Lists 3 people. Oh, I see. It's a joke. Anyway, this is a weird lack of urn in the Mechagon Wing for some reason. I agree that it's strange. If you think those are the two main problems with the dungeon, I'm surprised to hear that. And then 3, Hakar can go to hell. We tried to do that, but he keeps coming back, yeah. These changes provide huge utility to the urns and make them very important to use correctly. They can also provide a bonus on Musala fight, and that's just a hard disagree. I mean, one way or the other, I don't even think it's possible, but that fight is like, again, you can't just be nerfing the hard parts of the dungeon and calling that fun. That's not good. That's not good for the video game. Where you can now one phase the fight on high tyrannical keys by sacrificing an urn for it. I guess that's a good way to put it, though. Sacrificing an urn. I mean, I guess I get it. I guess I get it now because, yeah, you're actually going to not take the 20% damage to the ads as well. Okay, a little bit better than I expected on that, but I mean, don't even think it's possible. I legitimately don't think that works that way. So they'd have to change the way the fight works. For Hakar, his ads are so annoying, and the corrupted blood that he puts on you makes it impossible to bring the ads to the tank. Yeah, that's the fucking mechanic, dude. That's how the fight works. It's like if you had a mechanic that says stand in the spot, and no, that is the mechanic. Yeah. That's why the ads are difficult, right? Like if they were just tauntable, it wouldn't be a fight. You know what I mean? I don't know, maybe people don't fully realize this, but like the ads are a crucial element of that encounter's difficulty. Because when he does his blood barrier thing, it hits the ads too. So if you can just AoE them down on top of the boss, that fight again is just not the same encounter. I don't know if I don't know if many DPS realize that. Because at one point you had to actually like handle them meticulously and handle the whole fight perfectly to be able to kill that fight, and then they nerfed the hell out of it. So okay, Mist. This is the longest list of changes because I feel like Mist has a huge potential in the first part of the dungeon that is completely lost. Yeah, let's hear what this guy has to say about that. The Dress Spike Claw's 10% increased damage debuff should be in every strat. I don't know what that is. I mean, I don't even. Okay, so I guess I'm missing something. But yeah, he's probably right. Sadly, it is not. And any key above 15 or 18 completely skips shrouds and vis pots past these mobs. This is because, let's see why he thinks this is because. The bleeds they put are a near one shot. Their debuff also applies to the tank. And they are too far from the first boss to be used for that fight. Okay, no, that's not why they're skipped. They're skipped because they give very little count and they're very inefficient mobs. And they're very dangerous too. But that's why everybody skips the start. It gives way too little count. Like, go and watch the streams I've been doing when I do that route without skipping because it's like a low ass key and nobody's gonna skip. It's ridiculous. You barely get any count. I had no idea how little count you got from that early area. That early area is like way less efficient, and it took me forever to realize that. So no, I don't think I didn't even know that that was a thing, to be honest. But I almost like they're shooting themselves in the foot because they probably did that on purpose. Made that a buff, some kind of buff. I don't even know what that is. Okay, so let's change that. Let's make the beginning of Mist actually worth doing once again. Remove the giant bow breaker in 8 and 9. Just keep the 2 right before the boss. Those are enough, are they? Whose opinion is that? Also, nerf their bleed and prevent the tank from getting one shot by their debuffs. That way, those packs would actually be worth pulling. Because of the increased damage to other mobs, you could make giant ad pulls. On Tyrannical, you could simply save them for the first boss and his gigantic 8 million health pool. Open the possibilities rather than just having us skip the entire beginning. And so again, they're not having you skip. That's what you're choosing to do. But I guess I didn't even know that those things gave you some kind of buff. Literally didn't know that. After that comes the Mist Stalkers. On high keys, the upfront damage one-shots you. The only thing you can do is stun them. And I totally agree with that one. That one's probably something that should be looked at because that is bizarre how hard those hit. While there's something you can do about that, I don't think that's fair since you depend on stunning. Yeah, no, I actually totally agree with that. That feels like something right out of Legion, and it's like, it just seems like it's overpowered, out of tune with everything else. For the second boss of Mist, that boss takes super long for no reason. Well, no, it's the reason is the encounter. There's only 3 encounters in the dungeon. You know that, right? They're all pretty long. It is a boring fight that is painfully long, nothing more. The 10% phase does not need to happen. Remove this headache. Okay, so you're kind of, that's a shame because the person did put a lot of effort into this, but then you start basically fucking crying about nothing. I don't want the game to be difficult. It's like, okay, well that's not. It's a shame because the person put a lot of effort into this, but Blizzard can't listen to this, dude. You can't say remove this headache, please. Like, it's almost like they don't know who they're talking to. A lot of these people who make posts like this, not like this, because this is a good post, but posts where they're just like crying about stuff. It's like, you're talking to the people who made that, right? Do you think they're gonna like hearing you complain about it? Like, you have to be more respectful than that. The fights, there's nothing wrong with the fight, man. I mean, it's boring. I agree. It can be looked at as a boring fight, and there's really not much going on, but that's just the fight. And it's like, you can't just keep nerfing all these fights. Anyway, lastly, the last change just allows you to pull mobs into the third boss of Mist without running the risk of healing the Gorgers because of some stupid meta achievement thing. Again, I know nothing about that, so I'm going to defer on that one. But I definitely would never want to fight trash with that boss. People try to suggest doing that. I don't even remember when. I guess it would be the beginning of this season or something. Terrible idea. I don't want to ever fight anything with that boss. It's way too hectic. Okay, Spires. First of all, this is a beautiful dungeon artistically. One of, if not the most beautiful places that I've seen in a while thus far. That's okay. I agree. That said, everyone hates the skirmishers, and it's just because they're dumb. I mean, it's not even hard, right? Like, they're just kind of annoying. There's nothing really that you can actually do about them. and they're in when they're in a single pack, it's fine because then there's some things that are important. But when there's just three of them and they're just all jumping in different directions, it leads to really lame strategy stuff. Anyway, they are incredibly annoying because they jump back whenever you aggro them. So that's not actually how it works. That is incredibly annoying. Please remove that. And so now again, we're getting a little whiny because that's not actually how it works, right? You have to minimize the ability for them to jump, and you can strategize around that. My concern with them is that the strategy revolves around fucking kiting them behind a pillar. You know what I mean? It's like, that's just really dumb. I mean, I don't think Blizzard wanted that to happen. And frankly, I don't think they put those three together intelligently. I don't think that was like we're gonna get them. You know what I mean? Because the places where the mobs run or leave melee range in other areas have always been pretty fair, and it's always been a beneficial thing to have a Blood DK or somebody with Earth Souls, and now also a Warrior. Those things are valuable in those cases. But it's like in that situation where there's three skirmishers on the left, that pack should just be blown up. I think it should just be removed, honestly. And it would be a good idea for the dungeon too, because then that would completely change the strange routing that everybody does. Anyway, the other annoying part is how the last part of the dungeon is. Very few mobs with a lot of health. Speeding that up will make this key more digestible. You mean easier? Yeah, no, that's not going to be happening because it's already a very easy key. The reason they have a lot of health is because they're incredibly important story wise. Those mobs are not just mobs; they're lieutenants of the boss, who is like one of the most important characters in Shadowlands. So, and I think a lot of people probably forget that too. They forget that they're fighting characters that actually have story behind them. And you could say what you say about the story in Shadowlands, but Devos is a character that I definitely have a lot of respect for. So. Anyway, the other annoying part is how long the last part of the dungeon is. We read that. The first part is hard. The first part is hard of Spires. The first part of Spires is hard, I guess, but fair, I think. Get your kicks correct. Get your kicks correctly. Dodge the obvious death balls on the boss, and it's a fun ride. Devos and Oriferon, though, those two need to have some kind of buffer for all that health. Yeah, they do. That already exists. Devos alone on Tyrannical takes 4 to 5 minutes. And so I can agree it's a longer fight than others, but that's because of the transition. So I don't think. I guess I could kind of understand the original feedback was make the weapon do more damage. And I don't know if this is still true, but I remember, I think it was Faxi told me that if you use like wings or something that makes you just do more damage, and I think wings is probably one of the only CDs in the game like that, it does do that with the weapon. So I don't know if that's still the case, but yeah, I mean, 4 minutes on a 25, is that long? That would be very fast because it's taking me over 4 minutes to do that fucking 18 today. So yeah, I don't know. I agree the fight is long. Oh, first of all, Oriferon is not long. That's a normal length encounter, and that fight is very well made. I think it's fine as it is. Does not need to be nerfed. But Devos is just long, and that's mostly because of the transition. And I don't know if you can fix that. So anyway, Halls of Atonement. The first change here is actually a buff to the third boss because that boss is an actual joke. Well, I'm really glad to see that at least because obviously if you're not thinking about that boss being tuned, you're really not thinking because that boss obviously way too easy. We let a cast a volley go off for fun and it brought 3 players to half health. That's actually kind of a lot. I didn't even realize it would do that much, to be honest. Cast of that is missed all the time and I don't ever see it do anything. So I guess it is actually, I mean, yeah, okay. I think maybe that should not do more damage, but it should just happen more frequently, or maybe it shouldn't be interruptible. I don't know. The last boss of this dungeon, however, is kind of boring. What are you talking about? Why are you talking about these people like talking about boring, man? It's supposed to be hard. You find it boring to do hard content? Like, no, kill it faster, dude. The main thing is dodge the statues and soak the red lines, and that is hard. You should see how many people fail that. For the same reason as Devos, this boss needs to be shortened. No fucking way does that boss need to be shortened. Come on, are you joking? Okay, I just don't understand the point of that comment. You think the last boss of Halls, you better be making that dungeon's bosses are a complete joke, dude. Like, let's be serious here. The second boss is the only hard boss in the whole dungeon. And the last boss is like just basically mechanics. And if you do them well, it doesn't do anything, right? So why would we shorten the fight? I mean, what you really probably want to be saying here is that it's a bad encounter, and then you can't really be giving them feedback back after that. You know, it's like you designed a shit encounter, which I could kind of agree. But to be honest, I like the encounter. It's just that when the main mechanic of the fight, which is soaking the lines, only happens twice total, and then the fight's on Tyrannical and you're past that and you're sitting there for another minute and a half killing the boss, he doesn't really do anything, that's a dumb encounter. You just made a dumb encounter. It doesn't need to be shortened. They should probably just make that soak more often or something. You know what I mean? And maybe what they can do is, this is a much better idea, in my opinion. Make it so when you soak the lines, you get a buff. Kind of like in the other side, in the double, the married, are they sisters? Rusty thinks they're sisters, a brother and sister, that is. So I don't think they're married. I think brother and sister, the gnomes. Just like in that fight, if you don't do the mechanic, you take a lot of damage. Same mechanic, and if you soak it, you get a buff. Let's just do that for this boss, and then make it happen every 30 seconds instead of at percentages. The fight's just poorly designed. Okay, Plaguefall. The only hard boss in Plaguefall are the first and fourth bosses, because of the disease thing she puts on the group. Why on earth you remove the 2 exploding Plagueborers right after the first boss when you can pull into the first boss for big damage? I will never know. Yeah, you actually do know. You just said it. That's why they did it. Yeah. This is peak fun and Mythic Plus dungeon routing. Is it? Killing a boss with trash that you have to kill for count? That's what you find fun, huh? If you were hoping we wouldn't do that, I've got bad news for you. Because now we just pull the red slime to the first boss instead, and that doesn't kill the boss, yeah. That's could you not have done that in season 1? I never actually did this until season 2, which is kind of ironic. But let us make cool pulls. Let us make pulls that are difficult, and when you kill them efficiently, you become a better player at the dungeon. How about that? So first of all, when they were talking about Plagueborers, all I could think about were the ones from the mini boss. And that's a bug, right? Like, I actually forgot that they removed the ones from the dungeon itself. I had forgotten all about that. And you know what? I'm really glad they did that. Yeah, because that dungeon's already insanely easy. Like, it's, besides Necrotic Wake, which basically gives you the ability to kill itself, that dungeon is very, very easy. And so, yeah, I definitely don't. So now that we've read that, let's go. I wanted to clarify our intent with the Plagueboard change, as the goal was not to prevent creative routing. We're huge fans of player choice and creative strategies, and this is precisely the sentiment from which Plagueborers came to exist in the first place. The problem arose from the combination of how powerful they were, plus how easy it was for you to take them anywhere in the dungeon. See, I thought we were talking about the infinite respawning Plagueborers. I forgot that the other ones even existed. To that point, that it felt like your own performance playing your class was nearly irrelevant next to simply optimizing Plagueborers. This is similar to Toll de Gore Cannon. This is a delicate line to walk anytime we try to do powerful dungeon mechanics. So what is the reply? Disagreed. I actually, name pun intended, disagree with the creative use of Plagueborers. The issue was them being able to be snapped to specific locations. So actually, yeah, we both had that same thought, but it seems like the person who wrote this is actually talking about something different. He was talking about the trash, which I completely forgot that the trash actually was even there. If we're specifically talking about the dungeons that are designed around optimizing their gimmick, for a lack of better way to express it, it's Necrotic Wake. Yeah, and he knows that, yeah. In my opinion, it's the worst dungeon that's ever been made because of the gimmick being anywhere near as powerful as it is. And I kind of agree with that. It's out of whack, and I don't know why they did that, to be honest, because it doesn't seem it make any sense at all. So the number 1 damage choice for the dungeon is Kyrian weapons. Is that really the case? I guess it makes sense. I never even paid attention to that. The portal guys are unpullable. I don't even know their names. I pulled them once and never pulled them again. No, they're not unpullable. They just don't give a lot of count. And that was always my issue with that dungeon, was the route I wanted to do with Pride. It needed extra count, but they give so little compared to what type of damage what type of difficulty they offer. So that's actually a very good pull. They should probably have just made those mandatory, honestly. And that would change the whole dungeon. The first boss, depending on the affix, is a 9 pull with the use of a spear. Oh, yeah, you can do that, yep. On the drag to the second boss, it's a triple or quad pull depending on the affixes with the use of a spear. The caster that stuns and do massive damage with gore splatters are countered by using an orb, right? These optimizations save roughly 10 minutes. That's probably true, yeah. Which is why so many key pushers complete the dungeon with 5 to 7 minutes. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. It's easy to time, but you have to solve them differently around these mass pulls and have the burst DPS to do so. It's funny because in the beginning in Necrotic Wake, if you died, you lost the weapons. And so I think they changed that because it was turning into like this really toxic situation where some joker would pick the weapons up and then he would die to something stupid and then everybody would probably flame him, right? Can imagine that was probably happening a lot. But that was probably the way it should have stayed because now you only have the one chance, you know what I mean? Like, and if you fail, if you do something dumb with those weapons, then you've really messed yourself up. But it's just a social problem at that point. Anyway, so now he quotes the other thing and says, I actually think this should be the discussion point because I don't know that many people find them fun to begin with. That's really good to hear that. I actually totally agree with that. You're playing the gimmick more than you're playing the dungeon. And that could be a good thing, but I think in this case it's too much. Yeah. There were good balances where small optimizations from the dungeon can save a minute or two. But a lot of the Shadowlands dungeons as a whole feel like if you waste or wipe on one specific pull or don't optimize it, in sometimes dangerous ways, it adds 5 minutes to the timer, and then you completely lost me there. And that's exactly what it should be like. No, a lot of Shadowlands dungeons as a whole feel like if you waste or wipe on one specific pull or don't optimize it, in sometimes dangerous ways. It adds 5 minutes to the timer. Yeah, that's isn't that what we all want? Don't you want it to be rewarding? I think the problem with Necrotic Wake is that it's too easy to be rewarding, right? So yeah, like, dude, oh my God, you should do this next time. Next time you do Necrotic Wake, take the weapons and refuse to use them. Just keep overriding them. Just keep taking them and overriding the old ones because you can't have more than one spear. So take the spear, don't use it, and then take another spear and keep doing that and just see what people say. And they're gonna be mad at you because of how easy that you could have gotten value out of it for. Now imagine if you did that in the old Plaguefall, or I get maybe even Toll the Gore would be a better example. But like the nerf Toll the Gore, where there was like a limited amount of the cannons, right? Where you shot all the cannons and missed. Where that happened all the fucking time. That happened all the time. It's like not really a big deal. Like it's definitely not a good thing. You know, like if you used the Plagueborers and they didn't do any damage to anything else, not the end of the world. You're gonna be all right. You're gonna still upgrade that key. But if you do that with Necrotic Wake, people are gonna lose their minds. Just take the spear and just kind of like, do you ever see Troy? Oh, what a great film. Achilles, right? Brad Pitt. He's an actor. He throws the spear, kills the guy from like 500 yards away. Just do that with the spear. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. I'm very interested in hearing what you think about some of this stuff, but frankly, I have a lot of respect for these types of posts. But the ideas are frankly not very good. I mean, they're not really ideas; they're just nerfs, and the game doesn't support that kind of content. Like you can't just be nerfing the hard content, and I think the premise of it is bad from the start. Is the person? This person didn't even mention Necrotic Wake, which was a missed opportunity there. But the goal of this post appears to be to make every dungeon really easy. And I just don't really agree with that. I think Necrotic Wake's just the outlier, and it's been the case. Like Court was clearly an outlier, and Legion. Sometimes that just happens, and I think the reason that they don't act on it at the time is because they don't want to feel like they're taking away progression from people. Because, like, let's put it this way: if they nerf Necrotic Wake by as much as it should be nerfed, then people would probably be way more mad than just having 7 dungeons be one difficulty and one dungeon be much easier. But I don't know. Thanks for watching. Let me know.